A couple videos circulating across social media claim that hanging leg raises don't actually work your core very well. They claim that because core musculature does not cross the hip joint, that lifting the hip joint must not work your core. Well, that's not really true because the kinetic chain is just that. It's a kinetic chain. If one part moves, a different part has to stabilize and move with it. A big part of the core's job is to transfer energy from the upper body to the lower body. So you can see in the picture here on the left, we have the muscle called the iliacus. It is a hip flexor and it attaches at the hip or the pelvis up here. And it also attaches on the upper femur or the upper part of the leg right down here. Its job is to move the upper leg up. And then on the right, we have the rectus abdominis. We have the right side of it. And it attaches here at the ribs in the xiphoid process and down here at the pubis, which is also just in general part of the pelvis. And its job is to move the pelvis upwards, which is technically called a posterior pelvic tilt. But when the feet are fixed on the ground, it's also helping the torso to move down. So some people are arguing that leg raises only use hip flexors like this iliacus. The problem with saying that is that when the femur is lifted up by this iliacus, it can only move up so far before it starts to interact with the pelvis right here. Okay, and that's the same thing as this on the right side. And so when the femur flexes up into the position that you're supposed to do a leg raise in, it starts to tilt this pelvis upwards. And guess which muscle's job it is to tilt the pelvis upwards? It's the rectus abdominis' job to tilt the pelvis posteriorly. Saying that the hanging leg raises only use hip flexors like the iliacus is incorrect because eventually as the femur moves upwards, it's going to start interacting with the pelvis here, and the pelvis is going to need to start tilting posteriorly or towards the sternum, and the job that is done by is the rectus abdominis. And honestly, if anybody's ever done a hanging leg raise correctly, you start to feel it in your core, and it hurts. So it obviously works the rectus abdominis and other core musculature like the internal obliques or the transverse abdominis because of intra-abdominal pressure. It honestly does work the core in great ways.